Hello, everyone. Happy Giving Tuesday. I'm Victoria from the Giving Tuesday team, and we are excited to have a conversation with a few participants from the new Giving Tuesday movement, Give Native. Today, we're talking about giving to Native-led nonprofits. I'm so excited to have Carly, Cheryl, and Shannon here with me today to talk more about how you can give Native this Giving Tuesday. We'll get started with our panelists introducing themselves. First up, we have Carly. Carly, would you kick us off by introducing yourself and telling us about Give Native and why and how it was started?
Pidamaya miigwech Victoria. Hamitaku yepi washichu ia Carly Badharpal amakiapie. Dakota ia tokada kiamani wi mieye. Damakota wakpa ipaksha hemataha ka Minnesota makoche dedwatie. So I said, hello, friends and relatives. I greet you in my ancestral Dakota language. My name is Carly Badharpal. In Dakota, I am woman who walks toward the future. I'm Dakota. I'm a citizen of the Flandreau Santee Nation in South Dakota, but I live in our ancestral homelands of Minnesota Makoche, also known as Minnesota. I am the executive director at Native Ways Federation. So Native Ways Federation is a national Native nonprofit. Our mission is to activate and expand informed giving to Indian country, and we do that largely through donor education and advocacy. Our members consist of 6 of the most reputable national organizations in Indian country: Native American Rights Fund, National Indian Child Welfare Association, American Indian Affairs, and Shannon is here representing them, ACES, American Indian College Fund, and Cheryl is here, First Nations Development Institute. The executive directors, presidents, and CEOs of our founding member organizations, they make up our board. So Cheryl and Shannon are both on my board representing Native Ways as well. So we support Native-led nonprofits, including by advocating for increased resources directly to Native entities. And our members started coming together a number of years ago, specifically leadership from their organization, around a couple of issues. One, the lack of adequate support to Indian country, the lack of adequate philanthropic support in particular, and the fact that the largest percentage of grant dollars going into Indian country were going to non-Native entities. And unfortunately, these issues are still issues that are prevalent today. You know, we make up over 2% of the population of this country. We're the original people of this land, and yet less than 0.5% of large foundation dollars are going into our communities. And the amount going to Native-led entities is even less. So unfortunately, this is still an issue. We decided to launch this Give Native campaign as just one way to try to address this issue. So how did it come to be? It's a giving what is it and how did it come to be? Give Native is a giving campaign, and we developed it with Giving Tuesday this year. We previously launched Native Nonprofit Day in May of 2022. It was our first year doing that, and right away, Victoria, you and your colleagues at Giving Tuesday reached out to us and said you wanted to support us. You wanted to support our mission of increasing support for Native nonprofits. So we met up and then our team came up with Give Native. We partnered with you all to host an informational workshop as a resource for Native-led nonprofits across the country to learn how they could also participate in Giving Tuesday and elevate their visibility on this day. At Native Ways Federation specifically, we created free resources, including a toolkit with template messaging, social media graphics for Native-led nonprofits to use for their own fundraising on this day. So hashtag Give Native. This year we've promoted and we will continue to promote giving to Native-led entities on this day. Giving Tuesday, the largest giving day of the year. And I also want to mention one last thing. One fun thing we're doing is we're hosting an online scavenger hunt. So if you go to our social media and participate, you can through the scavenger hunt, you can learn more about our member organizations, the issues they're addressing, and then you also have the chance to win an assortment of prizes. We're giving away 3 gift baskets filled with Native goods, some from our member organizations, Native businesses and artists. And you can learn more by going to our social media.
Miigwech, thank you, Carly. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited that Give Native exists. As a First Nations person, having this identity-based campaign has been very exciting for me this year, for a number of my friends, and I'm sure for the nonprofits that are participating. So next I'm going to have Cheryl introduce herself and share a little bit about how it feels to be part of a coalition of Native-led organizations that are working together to amplify the need to fund Native-led organizations.
Well, Pilar, thank you. Petawashte, Chante. Um, so good morning. Good day, everyone. I just had a brief blank moment there. So I'm Cheryl Crazy Bull. I'm Shichango Lakota from the Rosewood Reservation in South Dakota, where I'm a citizen of that tribe. I am currently serving as the president and CEO of the American Indian College Fund, and we are our headquarters are on the homelands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho and Ute peoples outside of the Heskaw, the White Mountains, commonly known as the Rocky Mountains in the Denver area. I'm real happy to be here today and to join my colleagues. So the College Fund has really enjoyed being part of really a movement to draw attention, to bring visibility and representation at all levels of philanthropy for Indigenous peoples. We really believe strongly in our work and in our ability through our work to improve the lives of our people. And I think that as a coalition, that vision binds us together. And then the other part of the vision that binds us together, and what's really exciting to me about being in the coalition, is that we have high standards for our relationships and we have high expectations. So we want philanthropists, whether they're individuals or corporations or foundations, to give generously and to give with a real strong sense that the people that they're giving to, they know what works in their communities. They know what their people need. And so being part of this coalition and being able to promote Giving Native has been really rewarding in that regard, being able to be with others with that kind of vision. And there's power in voice. So we know that our shared voices and finding allies like GivingTuesday's team makes a really big difference for us as well. We do the thing that I think is really foundational in philanthropy is we provide both data. So we can give those of you who like data, we can give you that information, but most importantly, we provide story and we can share the successes of the communities that we work with, the families that we support, the tribal governments that, we give share expertise with and give support to as well. So I think that being part of that Native-led coalition is really valuable in those regards.
We're glad, Cheryl, and thank you so much for being here. And Shannon, I'll have you finish us off with introductions, and I have the same question for you, and that is just sharing a little bit about how it feels to be part of this coalition.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Victoria Helito. That's hello in the Choctaw language. My name is Shannon O'Loughlin. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I'm coming to you from the homelands of the Piscataway peoples, otherwise known as Maryland. The Association on American Indian Affairs is the oldest nonprofit serving Indian country, and I serve as their CEO and attorney. Please don't hold that against me that I'm an attorney. Let's see, what does it feel like to be a part of a coalition? I will tell you that we can't do any of this work alone. Often it feels like we're doing it alone because we haven't been backed up and supported by philanthropy. But you'll see all over Indian country, all over Native country, that we are working together in partnerships to strengthen what's happening on the ground in all parts of Native country. I feel strong, I feel empowered, I feel supported by the coalitions we have with Native organizations and with tribal nation governments. And I think that's something special and unique that's worth investing in from philanthropy. And I'll just keep it short like that. How's that, Victoria?
That was perfect. Miigwetchin, thank you. So we're going to jump into our questions now. My first question for you all is an opportunity to share some stories. My question is, how are Native-led nonprofits working towards solving issues that impact Indian country? And Cheryl, I'll have you start us off.
Thank you. So I'm going to focus on education because that's been my life's work, supporting educational opportunities and educational success for Native people. So just real briefly for our listeners, the experience that Indigenous people have had with education was really fraught with very disastrous and genocidal experiences. From the praying towns that were established in the East, where people were forced to move to environments where there were a lot of colonizing practices that really impacted the way people experienced education, to the development of a boarding school system, which took away children from their families, children and youth took them from their families, disrupting family structure, disrupting the social system, disrupting spirituality, disrupting cultural practice, disrupting just our ways of being, to the development of like public school systems that Native people had to participate in reservation communities, and then the relocation era, which happened in the 1950s and 60s and early 70s, where Native people were pretty much forced to move away from tribal reservation communities into more urban populations for education or for jobs or some combination of that. So a little more than 50 years ago, really after what I think was decades of Indian people recognizing that we needed to control our own education systems, the tribally controlled education movement took off in Native communities. And it was around the same time as the Civil Rights era and the establishment of the American Indian movement. But with tribally controlled education, we are saying as Indigenous peoples that we know how to educate our own people. We know how to educate our children. We know how to support our youth. We know what adult education looks like. And so Native nonprofits that are working in that education space, that is the philosophy that they approach education from. And we do that work that is what I would call, and I think we consider restorative work. So we already have all of those teachings and all of those ways of knowing how to be in the world and how to be in kinship with each other. And all we're doing is we're bringing that back. We're using schooling, which is a more formal experience, as the path to that, because in many ways, we have to mediate education. We have to mediate culture in our communities because so much of what has happened to us has disrupted our family and community life. So I think education nonprofits know that we are helping restore cultural identity. We are helping hold up family life. We are helping our people develop the knowledge and the skills that they need to manage our resources, to develop infrastructure, to educate our own children in the school systems, to be our own culturally competent healthcare workers. We're doing all of that kind of work through a variety of education approaches. Everything from community-based education, where you might be going to workshops or, just attending some kind of community event, to formal education programs, both from early childhood all the way through graduate education. So we're influencing as Native nonprofits that experience. In particular, where the area that I work in, we strive, along with the other higher education Native nonprofits, to help Native students have successful post-secondary experiences. Help them get into college, help them stay in college, whether it's vocational school or pursuing a professional degree, helping their families navigate that. And then helping, in the case of the College Fund, we work closely with the 35 tribal colleges and universities that are accredited members of the American Indian Higher Education Consortium to build their capacity to support their communities. Everything from, doing community development work and with arts or sustainability to educational programs like teacher education and things like that. So, I think that we're solving issues by helping people get an education. And that means that we have influence over many, many aspects of tribal life in rural, reservation, and urban settings. So I better stop there.
That was incredible. There's so much going on in the education space. Thank you for sharing all of those examples. Shannon, I'm going to pass it over to you now. And the same question, an opportunity to share a little bit about how Native-led nonprofits are working together to solve issues that impact Indian country.
Right. And I think we may all be familiar with the nonprofit model, especially in Native country, of people coming in and telling Native people that they know best of how to fix the issues in Indian country. And for so many decades, no one has ever listened to our needs. So what Native orgs can do is, and what the association absolutely does, is work on the ground with tribes and Indigenous peoples to hear what they need and to mirror that voice. Like I said earlier, we cannot do this work alone, and we need those on-the-ground grassroots partnerships. And the only way we can be successful is taking the time and the energy to really understand what is needed on the ground and what tribes and Indigenous peoples are wanting to happen and where they need to see change. So that's where we start. And I know the association, when we started back in 1922, so we're celebrating our 100-year anniversary this year, we started working on issues of Pueblo treaty rights in New Mexico and Arizona. And that was hand in hand with those Pueblos and tribes that had those rights. And we did it with them leading us. We provided the legal and other advocacy and other skills, right? But they led us. And so that's what the association does. That's what we all do as Native-led organizations, is we let Indian country lead us forward. And I think it's really as simple as that. That's how we make impact, is we shut up and we listen, right?
I love that, Shannon. The communities know their needs and they know how to solve their issues. I think that's so important. Thank you for raising that point. Carly, the question is now yours. How are Native-led nonprofits working towards solving issues that impact Indian country?
Thank you, Victoria. Cheryl and Shannon already spoke to this so well, but I'll just reiterate that due to those continued impacts of colonization, because we do continue to be affected as a nation, there's a lack of opportunity, there's barriers within many current systems, and we have a lot of issues in our communities that need to be addressed. And we also have these incredible organizations with leadership and staff that come from those same communities with ideas on how to best utilize our community strengths to support our people to thrive. And that's something that's really important. Oftentimes we struggle because so many folks don't know about us, don't know our history, don't know about the current contributions we're making to society, that we have to start with the kind of Indian Country 101, we're still here. And then we start talking about all the issues, which is important and it needs to happen. And we have to be able to talk about our strengths and our assets. And that's what our communities are doing. We have incredible assets, wisdom, knowledge, ways of being in relationship that need to be supported. For too many years, and Cheryl and Shannon both mentioned this already, but we've been told what we need by others. The federal policies and practices that attempted to assimilate us into Western society and disconnect us from our cultural and ancestral strengths. We're still dealing with that. We're still dealing with the impacts of that, and it's still happening. But Native-led organizations, by and large, are working to take back what's ours. And quite frankly, what's needed for humanity. They're fighting for our cultural resources, our languages, our indigenous education systems, our traditional and contemporary arts, our governance structures. They're working to utilize our ancestral ways of being, of protecting the land, the water, the airways, and they're working to tell our stories for ourselves, including through, as Cheryl mentioned, collecting and analyzing our own data and telling our stories through that data. I previously worked as a program officer at a private foundation, and I often heard folks, whether foundations or individual donors, I often heard them say, I want to support Native communities, but I don't know how. Or I want to support a specific issue area, and I just don't know who's doing that in Indian Country. And the fact is, no matter what issues you want to support, whether it's education, the arts, the environment, whatever it is, health, there's likely a Native nonprofit doing work in that space. So it's important to reach out to organizations wherever you're looking to support, or reach out to us at Native Ways Federation. We're happy to help make some of those connections. I also just want to share, it's important to mention that by supporting Native organizations and entities, that others benefit as well. As Indigenous people, we're taught to look 7 generations ahead. We want a future that includes a healthy planet, healthy communities, physically, mentally, spiritually, for our children and grandchildren, including those children that we have not even met yet. And these are things that aren't just going to benefit our communities, but they'll benefit humanity. They benefit the planet, and they help us all to stay more connected, both to the land and to each other as human beings. So our Native-led nonprofits, we have the solutions to address the issues our communities are facing. We're the closest to those communities. We know what we need. We just need the resources to support and implement them.
Thank you, Carly. So we've talked a little bit about financial resources and giving donations, but my next question reaches a little bit beyond that. And Shannon, I'll have you go first. My question is, outside of donating money to Native-led nonprofits, what can we be doing to support Native nations and people each and every day beyond Giving Tuesday?
Right. It's a wonderful question. That's a wonderful question, Victoria. And I think the first thing that we all need to realize is that we're all human beings, and that our values, the things we hold dear as Native nations, are the same things that everyone else holds value in. It's about protecting the integrity of our families, protecting our children, getting a strong education, making sure we have adequate housing, healthcare, that we have the right to practice and manifest our culture and traditions and religions. All of those things we all have shared values in. So I think the first thing is that there's nothing woo-woo or mysterious, or what we have what we don't have is we lost the right to access all of those things that everyone values as human rights, right? We've lost that through federal policy and racism. So what we're asking for is to have equity, and to be able to be who we are as Native people, practice our culture and religions, have the right to develop economic opportunity for our people, and all of those other things that we share. Other active things we can do besides just having that realization, it's like, oh, we're all in this together, is is being local. So you may not even realize near you there may be a tribal reservation or tribal lands. That tribe may have a tribal museum or other cultural center that you can visit and you can get to know. In fact, this Saturday, sorry for throwing this plug in, but this Saturday, we've announced it's Tribal Museums Day. The first Saturday of December is Tribal Museums Day, and we're inviting everyone to find a nearby tribal museum or institution that they can visit or watch our live streaming event from several tribal museums. There's so many things that you can do to learn more about Native nations, because most of our education kind of stops at 1900 about who Native people are, right? So there's so many things that we can do to better educate ourselves about who Native people are and what our needs are, what we want, and our shared values with one another. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. Carly, I will pass the same question to you next, and that is, outside of those financial donations, what can we be doing to support Native nations and people each and every day beyond Giving Tuesday?
Absolutely. Well, I do think I agree that it starts with learning about the Native nations, communities, nonprofits that are out there. And as Shannon mentioned, you can start in your own backyard. Ask yourself, who are the original stewards of the land where you live, work, and play? And if you don't know, think about why that is. Why don't you know? And there's reasons for that. Native people in this country are largely invisible in the U.S. education system, as Cheryl talked about. Shannon mentioned that folks aren't taught about our people post 1900. There was a report from National Congress of American Indians, I think a few years ago, that said that 87% of state history standards have no mention of Native people pre-1900. So we're taught about as a people of the past. But we're still here. We're very much here. We're making valuable contributions to the world, to our communities. Our tribal colleges understand this. They're working to make these changes for our people within our own education systems. And we have a ways to go, and we also all have a responsibility, Native and non-Native, to educate ourselves. So I would ask non-Natives to educate yourself about our collective history, because Native history is U.S. history. And so if you live on this land, it's part of your story too, Native or not, but also get to know the tribes, communities, organizations that exist today. Reach out to them and ask them how you can help. I think it's already been mentioned, but I'm going to say it again. Follow their lead. Follow our lead. Listen to us when we tell you what we need, rather than assuming, and then follow up. So folks can also, by listening, by learning, learn how to better support Native issues and causes that are important to us, from the Indian Child Welfare Act, updating Native education and history standards, supporting efforts for returning land to Native hands, cultural resources, supporting clean air and waterways. Pay attention and help us. Be our ally on some of these issues. Also, paying attention to Native representation at tables of influence is really important, from elected and appointed government positions to boardrooms, school boards, advisory committees. This affects our nonprofits. This affects our families. This affects all of us. And so I do think it's important to mention the importance of Native representation in spaces today more than ever. We have a U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, who's Laguna Pueblo. Here in Minnesota, we have an Ojibwe Lieutenant Governor. That's made a difference. And we need to see more of that. I'd love to see a Native person on the U.S. Supreme Court, but I'd also like to see a Native person on our local park board. And I really do believe that we would all benefit from that kind of representation. I'll put in a little plug. Follow us, follow Native Ways Federation on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Share our hashtag GiveNative posts, follow the Give Native hashtag, see who else is posting, what organizations are out there, share, donate. You can also check out our website, nativeways.org, and sign up for our newsletter to learn more. But again, follow our lead. We know what we need to thrive. We just need the chance to do so. Miigwech, Victoria.
Thank you, Carly. And Cheryl, I'll have you wrap up that question. If there's anything else you'd like to add, I've got a lot covered so far. That was really awesome. But the floor is yours. And a reminder, the question is, outside of financial contributions, how can we support Native nations and Native people beyond Giving Tuesday?
Yeah, so I do have just a few things I'll add. Do business with Native businesses. I think that there's some knowledge, I think, or opportunity to access Native business that do Native arts. But there are also other Native businesses. For example, here in Denver, there's a Native-owned office supply store. So there are other businesses besides what I think people default to, which is, Native arts or Native fashion. So I would encourage people to search out Native businesses, including Native bookstores. You can access Native bookstores to order your books just as easily as you can from Amazon. You might be supporting them with a little bit more resources, but that's just part of the price we pay to support those kinds of businesses. I think developing an understanding that tribal citizens, that tribal people are, that it's a political identity that we have. I think many times people forget, because like both Shannon and Carly referenced, there isn't a lot of good public or private education about Indigenous people. So people often don't understand the unique political identity of tribes, so that we, because of the treaty relationship that we have. And I think that would help people if they would understand that political identity a little bit more. I think that you can ask questions about the curriculum. You can ask questions about data visibility at any level. You can ask it of your school board. You can ask it of your teachers. You can reach out to, just as was being mentioned in terms of the representation in different kinds of environments. I think that's really important. We focus also with equity issues for Native students who attend non-tribal institutions. And so I just want to put a plug in for the College Fund has on its website a report that gives recommendations to higher education entities about how they can be more inclusive and create a sense of belonging for Native students. I think those kinds of resources are available and are really action oriented. So we're not just saying, oh, you should create an environment. We're telling you exactly what you could do to create an environment where Native students are represented and feel more included. And then I want to put a plug in for resources that Illuminative can provide. You can go to illuminative.org, and there's lots of resources for Native people and for allies of Native people to be used to increase representation and visibility. I think those are some really good assets for our listeners. And then the College Fund, along with other organizations, we also have a initiative called This is Indian Country. And you can go to the thisisindiancountry.com website, and we have a whole campaign, lots of resources, lots of educational tools that you can see and take advantage of to educate yourself and your family, your coworkers, to do that kind of visibility and representation outreach. I just want to make note that the College Fund, our mission, of course, is to transform lives and communities through education and through public education. So you'll find lots of educational resources by accessing our website and using the hashtag Give College Fund, or College Fund and Give Native, right, Carly? Hashtag Give Native, hashtag College Fund.
Wonderful. So this brings us to my last question, and I think this is the question I'm most excited about. It has to do with looking forward to the world that we're creating with all of this generosity that we're just really, encouraging people to engage with on Giving Tuesday and beyond. And so my question is that, as you know, Giving Tuesday exists to build the world that we imagine through generosity. And so my question is, what is your vision for a future society that's built on generosity? And Carly, I'll have you kick us off with that question.
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. Well, I'm a mom. I have a 5-year-old son, and I envision a world where our people not just survive, but thrive, where we can access our dreams, where we can dream, where we can access our dreams, and not always be in response mode, which is where oftentimes I think our people find ourselves and our organizations find ourselves. Everything that I'm doing with the work that I'm doing has a goal of trying to build a world that I want my son, my nieces and nephews, and their future children, their grandchildren, where I want them to be successful, and be successful in terms of happy and healthy, and to have a healthy planet to live on. Where our children, even those who are 7 generations ahead, those who we haven't even met yet, where I feel like they'll have those opportunities to thrive as Indigenous people. So where they'll have access to their language, culture, as well as economic and physical health and well-being, but where they're spiritually connected to a planet that's healing and not consistently in jeopardy of being destroyed. I envision a world where every individual has the opportunity and supportive environments to cultivate their individual gifts, and to recognize their roles in this world as a collective. In our Lakota Dakota communities, we have this concept of mitakuye oyasi, or we are all related. The Creator gave us all these gifts. We inherently have these gifts. We're all gifted and talented when we come into this world, but we live in a world that often doesn't support those gifts. And so how can we change that? How can we actually lean in and live up to, lean into our values and be able to become the people that we're meant to be. And when we do, that's where we find balance. When we discover who we are and how we're connected to one another. We are all related. Mitakuye oyasi means that we are all related. We are all connected. And so that's the future I envision, where we not only have a good understanding of that, but are able to live it and support one another. Miigwech and Wopita.
Wonderful. Cheryl, you're next. What is your vision for a future society built on generosity?
That's it's hard to follow what Carly said, because that's exactly right. No, I think that the foundational value that we as Indigenous peoples share with each other and with other cultures and races is kinship. So I think what Carly, referenced, Midakuye Oyasi, meaning we are all related, means we are also related to the rest of what exists on the earth. We're also related to the water and everything that's in the water, the air and everything that lives in the air, and other living and non-living beings. And I think when you live in kinship, then you will be more courageous, and you'll be more compassionate. You'll be more mindful. If I think of our ancestors and their decision making, they made mindful decisions. They thought about what they knew, which we call, like today, ancestral knowledge, but they thought about that. And then they thought about the consequences, which is thinking of the next generations. And I think in today's society, it's such a fast-paced kind of, in many cases, try to survive the best that you can, that we don't get the opportunity to practice those kinship ways. And so I think that, to me, the ideal place would be having that. And I have great-grandchildren. I'm actually, I have shared with some people that I'm in the middle of 7 generations. My great-grandfather was still living when I was born, and now I have great-grandchildren, and I'm right right smack in the middle of that. And I think about those teachings and how those teachings were really caring and generous, and they were intended to really help us manage our behaviors and put parameters around how we interacted with each other. So I think of a future world that looks like that.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And Shannon, I'll have you wrap up the panel by sharing your vision for a society that's built on generosity.
Mental health. We are so separated from one another. And one of the things that I would say one of the core beliefs and values in Native America is that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of a family, an extended family, community, a nation that we take seriously. And I think, generosity to me means that we're able to give of ourselves, be of service to our community. And in return, we become healthy people. We become healthy, well-adjusted human beings. The statistics in Indian country that everyone points to, all the horribles, the parade of horribles in Indian country that many people often focus on in philanthropy, tends to negate that when we're allowed to practice our culture and come into community, that we become healthy, that we resolve intergenerational trauma, we pass on intergenerational healing. So I think part of the value of generosity is about health and healing and being of service to others. The association's vision is to create a world where diverse Native cultures and values are lived, protected, and respected. And so that's what we see for a world full of giving and generosity. I think it's also about recognizing how dependent we are on one another. And every single thing around us, every molecule of oxygen we breathe, absolutely every drink of water that we taste, we are dependent on everything around us. And so we have to be generous. We can't take. We have to give. And I'm so grateful that there's something called, Giving Tuesday, and now we have hashtag Give Native to really give us time to remember and reflect on how important it is to give, and to quash those desires that our world likes to teach us about taking. It's only in that giving and generosity where we can truly become strong, functioning human beings, part of a greater community and society that is focused on all of our health and not just our individuality and what and that kind of selfish part of ourselves. So really grateful to be a part of this Giving Tuesday and Give Native event, and helping me to remember how important it is to be part and reach out and be a part of our communities.
What a wonderful teaching to close us out. We can't take. We have to remember to give. I loved that. So Chimigwech, big thank you to you incredible leaders for spending some time with us today, and for being a part of Give Native. For all of you watching, be sure to check out hashtag Give Native on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see additional ways that you can support Native peoples and Native nations. Have a great Giving Tuesday.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.